Okay, hello everybody. My name is Ileana Perez. I'm the Director of Research and Entrepreneurship with Immigrants Rising, and I am very excited to be here with all of you today. We are going to be doing a webinar titled Newish Rights in California, State Legislation to Support Undocumented Immigrant Entrepreneurs. This is a webinar that is done in partnership with the California Immigrant Policy Center and the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. I am very excited to have with us Sasha Feldstein from the California Immigrant Policy Center and Alex Lawson from the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. And the agenda for today's webinar is that we are going to be doing an overview of SB 1159 and AB 2184. And along the way, we're going to be showing some personal stories of individuals who have successfully been able to acquire professional and business licenses. Then we're going to talk about what it actually takes to get a professional and a business license. Then we're going to talk about some ongoing issues and work that continues to be done. This is based on some preliminary research that we've done with individuals, undocumented individuals who are trying to acquire professional and business licenses. And then we're going to take a few minutes at the end of the webinar to do some questions. Some brief housekeeping before we get started. All the slides and the recording will be shared afterward. It does typically take us a little while to get everything edited and posted up on our website, but it will definitely be accessible. If you do have any questions, please include them in the chat box or in the Q&A feature. I will definitely be answering any questions that I can answer immediately. If not, we will save the questions for Alex and Sasha to respond at the end of the webinar. And again, at the very end, we're going to leave about 10 to 15 minutes to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you again for joining us. Now I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues.
Okay, thank you so much, Ileana, and thank you to Immigrants Rising for hosting us. I'm really excited to be here with you today, and I wanted to point out that one of the reasons we called this webinar New-ish Rights is because we'll be going over two bills, one that passed in 2014 and went into effect in 2016, and the other one that was passed last year. But so much of the important work with policies comes after bills are passed, and that's why it's really important to get the word out as much as possible to make sure people know what laws have changed, what their rights are, and share that with others. So I'm here to start talking about SB 1159. It was passed in 2014 and went into effect January 1st, 2016. And it allows you to use an individual tax identification number instead of a social security number for any professional licenses issued by any licensing board within the Department of Consumer Affairs, as well as licenses from the State Bar and the Department of Real Estate. It also prohibits the Department of Consumer Affairs from denying you a license based on your citizenship or immigration status. So you are able to sit for professional licensing exams and apply for professional licenses with an ITIN instead of a social security number. Although you do still have to take the exams and fulfill any other requirements in order to get the license, and every license has different requirements such as field hours, work experience, internships, things like that. Next slide, please. So the Department of Consumer Affairs oversees many boards that issue many licenses. This is just a sampling of some of the licenses that are available. But you can see all the different licenses and requirements by going to either of the websites listed in this slide. You can look at the type of work you're interested in doing, the type of professional license you're interested in, and all of the requirements can be found there. Some of the requirements listed may not apply to you, so it's really important to read through all of the information carefully to see what you need in order to get the license. Next slide. And we'll hear from Ileana on someone's story in applying for a professional license.
Thank you, Sasha. So I did want to highlight Sergio Garcia, who did become the first undocumented lawyer in the state of California. He actually became the first undocumented person to get a professional license back in 2012. So I did want to highlight him as really being a proponent and an advocate for undocumented people to be able to get their professional licenses. He actually was able to take his case to the California Supreme Court, which ultimately allowed him to practice law. So this is just a great example of an individual who, again, was undocumented, was able to go to law school, and was ultimately granted the opportunity to practice law. Because he didn't have work authorization at the time, he actually opened his own business. So this is sort of a way to think about how to combine professional licenses with business licenses. When individuals are able to get their professional license, they can start their own businesses, such as the case of Sergio, who now actually owns a very successful law firm. He ultimately was able to adjust his status, but very much set the foundation for the professional licensing bill that we now have available. Another story I wanted to share is of Norma. Norma has successfully been able to get her real estate license. Norma actually has a degree in accounting, but quickly realized that real estate was actually an opportunity that was available to her regardless of immigration status. And then, therefore, her process was that she enrolled at her local community college, was able to take the 3 required courses that were needed, was able to pay for her license to do real estate, and actually took additional classes to ultimately become a broker. So again, these are great opportunities that are not necessarily tied to a particular degree. So individuals could actually end up getting a real estate license to be able to augment their income regardless of their degree. So just a couple of examples for you all to see the kind of professional licenses that are available. But as Sasha mentioned, there are many more that undocumented individuals are able to get. And now we're gonna talk a little bit more about AB 2184. So we'll pass it on to Alex.
Yes, thank you, Ileana. So basically, I'm Alex Austin. I'm from the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights of SF. AB 2184 was passed in 2018. It was a joint effort on behalf of CIPC and our organization. It allows you to apply for a business license without having a social security number. And in order to run any business in California, you're going to need a business license, or in some jurisdictions, it's referred to as a business tax certificate. The different forms of identification that are often accepted on business license applications include the California driver's license, the California ID, an ITIN, or a municipal identification number. Next slide, please. So there are additional protections under AB 2184. It requires local governments to accept use of a mail service or service of process as an alternative address. It also requires local governments to prevent the disclosure of residential address information. And it requests local governments to state that they're protecting such information on the face of the application itself. Next slide, please. So this is an example of a business license application. Often you can apply for a business license at your city hall or through your city's finance department. And when you go on, it should allow for these different 3 protections and tenets of AB 2184, which I mentioned earlier. So as you can see here, it protects, or it allows for a social security number, but it shouldn't just require that or ask for that. It also allows for driver's license or other ID number. This other portion is allowing for a service of process address in the event that you run your business from your home. And you can provide that address instead. And below is the stated privacy protection, which if your business license application does not provide any of these protections, then we would like you to contact us, and we'll contact the city on your behalf. And there's a slide later that will have our contact info. Next slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. So Since AB 2184 passed, we've already received several questions about it, so I wanted to take a moment to answer a couple of them here. The first is whether or not you need a business license to work as an independent contractor in California. And unfortunately, the answer is that it depends. It depends on the city and county you're working in, as well as the type of work that you're doing. Some areas don't have a business license requirement for independent contractors, whereas in other areas, even independent contractors who work from home must obtain a business license. The general rule is that if you're looking to open a business in California, you should obtain a business license in the city where your business is located. Next slide, please. Here's an example of some of the contradictions. So in Los Angeles, if you're in the county, a business license is only required if you work in unincorporated areas of the county and if your business activity is one of the 110 activities licensed through the county business license program. So on that link, you can actually go and see if the type of work that you do falls into any of those 110 activities. And if it does, you might need a business license, whereas if it doesn't, you might not. And that's for county unincorporated areas. Whereas for the city, a business license is required if you are self-employed and based in the city of LA. It's also required even if your business is based outside of the city, but you work in the city for 7 days or more in a calendar year. There are some tax exemptions, for example, businesses with gross receipts under $100,000. And if you click on that link, you can learn more about the requirements. But the main point here is that it really depends on where your business is located and the type of work that you're doing. Next slide, please. Another question we get is, how do I get a business license? So you can search for your city and county's website. For example, you can go ahead and Google business license in Fremont to look up your city's website and get more information there. You can visit or call your local government office, or you can go to the website listed here that I mentioned before, where you can list your location and the type of work you're interested in, and all of the different licensing requirements will show up. You should look for business license or business tax certificate for specific information on obtaining a business license. To apply, you can go to City Hall, or in some cases you can apply by mail or even online. Sometimes there's a fee attached and the cost can vary by locality. In many cases, though, there are certain business tax exemptions that you may be able to get. For example, very small businesses and first-time business owners. So it's really worth it to look up the information and contact your local government office with questions. Next slide, please. So now we'll hear some more stories.
Thank you, Sasha. So as Sasha mentioned, there are lots of different business licenses that people can get either to work as independent contractors or to become business owners. So Myra is a perfect example of an individual who was able to get a business license to work as an independent contractor in the field of environmental science. So I often get this question in terms of how do we turn a particular degree or a field of study into an independent contractor or business opportunity. And this is just to showcase an example of how someone was able to turn environmental studies into contracting opportunities, both with the local government, with a local school district. And what Myra gets to do is actually be able to take low-income communities out into the environment and engage in learning opportunities to learn more about our local environments. And this is just, again, one example of many types of independent contracting or business opportunities can people pursue. My own father, for example, has been successfully been a business owner in landscaping for many years, and he followed the same process in terms of using his I-10, going to City Hall, and being able to do landscaping. It was a little bit different actually for him, and I wanted to also highlight his case in that in the Central Valley, because there are so many small cities, he actually had to go through multiple city halls to apply for his business license to be able to work in 4 surrounding cities in the Central Valley. But again, very exciting opportunities for you all to think about how to turn your own fields of study interest into these kind of independent contracting and business opportunities.
Great, thank you, Liliana. So I wanted to make sure that we provided you with some resources for yourself as well as to help spread the word about these laws. There's a link on these slides for fact sheets. You can also find them at our website at caimmigrant.org. We have social media graphics to share at Cal Immigrant. And we also have a link where if you run into any problems applying for a license, we want to track that and look into it. So there is a Google form that you can fill out, or you can fill out on behalf of someone else if you'd like, for anyone who runs into problems applying for a business or professional license. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Sasha. So in addition to working with the California legislature to pass AB 2184, both LCCR and CIPC have been involved in actively monitoring whether or not all of the California cities and jurisdictions allow for a business license process that is in compliance with the legislation itself. Again, in compliance would mean that the business license application allows for alternative identifying information other than a social security number, that it protects residential information, and that it states such. If your jurisdiction is not in compliance, as Sasha mentioned, we would like you to fill out the form that will be available later in this slide presentation, or to contact our offices, and that information will always also be available a little bit later. Next. Thank you.
So even though we've had success with SB 1159 and AB 2184, I did want to recognize that there are still many issues that our communities have in applying for and obtaining business and professional licenses. Field hours, the requirements to work and have work experience in order to get a professional license. If you're running into problems getting hired on to get those field hours and that work experience, that can sometimes be a challenge. There are also language barriers where many of the professional license exams are only done in English. Sometimes interpreters are provided, but that can also be a challenge. And to take the professional license exams can sometimes cost a lot of money. And if you do not pass the professional license exam the first time, you may have to pay again to take it multiple times. So there are cost and language barriers and some of these other barriers that we're looking into. Including cost barriers with owning and operating your own business. The cost of starting up an LLC, for example, is around $800. Getting access to loans, bank accounts, things like that to help you with the startup capital to start your business can also be a challenge. And we also want to acknowledge that there is a historical lack of investment in businesses owned by women and people of color. So these are some of the ongoing issues that we want to continue looking into and working to address. And we also want to make sure that if there are other licensing agencies that are required to start your own business that may still require social security numbers, we want to look into that as well. Next slide, please. So if you are interested in getting involved in these issues and working to make business and professional licenses more accessible for everyone, you can follow California Immigrant Policy Center, subscribe to our email list. It's actually CAL Immigrant, Cal Immigrant, and subscribe to our email list. If you have questions about city compliance, you can contact Sushil Jacob of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. Their email information is listed here. And if you have any legal questions about entrepreneurship or starting a small business, there are places you can go in the Bay Area and Los Angeles, links you can click on, and clinics that you might be able to access. And Immigrants Rising also has a ton of resources that I'll let Ileana share next.
Great, thank you, Sasha. So as many of you may know, we do have a lot of resources and information available. And aside from that, our entrepreneurship programming with Immigrants Rising also includes leadership development in the form of fellowships, where we invite individuals to apply for year-long paid fellowships that do not require work authorization. We also engage in a lot of networking opportunities through local and national events. Be on the lookout for our upcoming Festival of Undocumented innovation that will happen likely next year, early next year. In addition to that, we also have a lot of financial support, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and we do engage in a lot of referrals. Part of the reason why we really enjoy partnering with organizations is that you all get an opportunity to see some of the partners we work with and be able to get additional one-on-one support from some of these folks. So in terms of our information and resources, they are all located, sorry about that. They are located on our website under resources. So what I recommend in terms of accessing the correct resources that are good for you is to use our brand new keyword feature, so all of our resources include entrepreneurship, legal support, higher education. So we do have a lot of information that may oftentimes be difficult to find. So I do recommend using the keyword. For example, here, as you can see, I did working for yourself, and these are some examples of what's going to come up. But there are definitely many more resources. We are starting to slowly create new resources in Spanish as well. Some of the types of resources and topics we have, in terms of the types, we have guides, handouts, and webinars. So here listed, you can see that we have more information about what it means for individuals to work for themselves. We have a full ITIN guide that talks about the importance of an ITIN, how to get an ITIN, how to renew an ITIN. We have more information about accessing financial capital. That's actually in collaboration with Mission Asset Fund. We have information about how to choose a business structure. So once you do get a business license, you may want to think about whether you want to incorporate as a sole proprietorship, as a partnership, limited liability corporation. So we have lots of information about that. And again, probably one of the #1 questions I also get is related to taxes, and all these questions related to the ITIN, the Social Security number, the employer identification number. So we have a lot of information, including recent updates related to the tax code. Other information related to marketing, and we also have information about retirement options that are available to undocumented immigrant entrepreneurs. So definitely encourage you to take a close look at all our resources. And again, this recording and these slides are ultimately going to turn into another resource that you can access as well. I also wanted to promote our brand new Entrepreneurship Fund Kickstarter grant. So as Sasha mentioned, oftentimes both the professional and the business licenses do require a fee. So I encourage you to apply for our Kickstarter grants, which are available. They're available on a one-time basis, and these are grants that range from $500 to $2,000, which is definitely kind of within the amounts of money that are needed for some of these professional and business licenses. Our #1 requirement is for individuals to have a social entrepreneurship component to the type of work you are looking to do. But other than that, these are grants specifically for undocumented freelancers and entrepreneurs who are looking to get kickstarted with their businesses. So they are available year-round. There is no deadline for them. We review applications on a monthly basis. So for example, right now, this week, we are currently reviewing all the applications that came in from the beginning of October to now. And so then if you do choose to apply, we will consider your application for the next month of review for our grants. And that concludes our webinar about AB 2184 and SB 1159, short and sweet. And with that, we'd really like to save plenty of time for all of you to be able to ask us any questions. And I invite you all to add your questions either in the Q&A or in the chat box. Is there anything else you wanted to add while we're waiting for questions, Sasha or Alex?
There were a couple questions that came to me. One was around how to get the links to the websites on the slides. That will be included in the slides when they're shared after the webinar, so please look out for that. Another question was about getting a CNA license. This is issued by the Department of Public Health, is my understanding from the state. And I'm not entirely clear on the specific requirements there, but I will look into it. And if other people have questions related to that, please feel free to contact me. It looks like someone else asked if there was a link for professional licenses in California. I think I hear that as a link of all the different professional licenses available. Again, if you go to that Cal Gold website, it will have a list of all the different licenses that professional licenses that you can get and the different requirements. Another question asked if we work with post-secondary institutions to inform students about these opportunities after they graduate. I am actually speaking at Cal State Long Beach in November. We're happy to share this presentation or help answer questions. So if there's something you're interested in doing, please feel free to be in touch. And someone else asked about partners that we work with. Have we worked with entrepreneur programs through the Mexican consulate? I personally have not. Ileana, does Immigrants Rising work with them at all?
We have engaged in preliminary conversations about a partnership. We are very much aware of the kind of programming they have, and we do refer individuals to them, but it's more right now like a referral rather than an actual partnership with them. But they're definitely a great resource that I highly recommend for folks interested in getting additional information and resources related to entrepreneurship.
Great. Another question asked if we have any presentations or flyers that are specifically for college students. Not specifically. If there are specific questions that are unique for college students, please feel free to be in touch. However, the fact sheets are applicable to anyone, including college students. So happy to share those. And then someone else also asked if there's a webinar available on how to file for an LLC. Does Immigrants Rising have that?
We do have a webinar on worker cooperatives and limited liability corporations, which we partnered with Democracy at Work Institute on. So we do have access to that information, and typically our partner for that is, again, DAWI, Democracy at workinstitute.org supports with that. Another organization we partner with is Sustainable Economies Law Center, who also supports with the creation of LLCs.
Great. Someone else asked about how long it takes to get an EIN. I think that this can vary, but I do know that I'm pretty sure Immigrants Rising, right, has information on other resources on starting your own business and getting the proper identifications there.
That is correct. So I would definitely refer, it's Alberto, to check out our resource on ITINs, EINs, and taxes. And that will take you to the different resources and different links that will tell you more information about how to get the EIN and how long it takes. But that's correct that it varies depending on the type of business you're trying to get, where you're located, things like that.
Great. And we got one more question. Alexandra asked, can I apply for a real estate license and the entrepreneurship program? Is there any event that you could go to soon? I can answer the real estate license part, which is, yes, under SB 1159, you can apply for a real estate license and sit for any exams or requirements that are involved, even if you do not have a social security number.
And then in terms of the entrepreneurship program, you may have to be a little bit more specific about whether it's the fellowship. So our Immigrants Rising Fellowship applications typically open in the spring. So you can be on the lookout for that. If you're referring to our Kickstarter grants, those are available on a rolling basis. So you can apply for that whenever you feel you're ready for that. And then just know that the Kickstarter grants are reviewed at the end of the month. Any events soon to go to? We are currently planning, as I mentioned, our Festival of Undocumented Innovation, where we bring together undocumented entrepreneurs and freelancers from across the nation. That we are just about to finalize a date for that, but that will likely happen around February or March of next year. And I don't know, Sasha or Alex, if you both wanted to announce any other upcoming events that you think might be of interest.
I mentioned there is an event that might be coming up at Cal State Long Beach. I'm happy to share that information with people who might be interested. But otherwise, the best way is just to stay in touch.
Yeah, I don't have any announcements for upcoming events as of now. Thank you, though.
Any other questions that folks have related to both professional business licenses? Okay, if there are no more questions, let's see if we have some contact information. We did not leave our contact information. I just realized that, but you can definitely, reach us all at our respective websites, and I can also include our contact information once I post the slides for this presentation. Let's see, and I'll stick around just a couple more minutes to see if there are any other questions that come in. Anything else you see, Sasha? Let's see, someone seems to have asked what makes it a social entrepreneurial grant? What types of social entrepreneurship grants have been awarded? So this is related to our Kickstarter grants. So basically with our social entrepreneurship grant, we ask individuals to propose businesses that have some type of broader social impact. So for example, we are just about to make an announcement about our winners for last month, and we chose a woman who owns a cleaning business, and her clients are primarily individuals with disabilities and the elderly. So that is sort of an example of using that concept of being able to clean for individuals who are in need. So that's sort of an easy way to think about social entrepreneurship. We also chose a woman who is leading a network of undocumented professionals, and she is building an online network and is looking to host more events. So that really is another good example of branching out and thinking about ways to help others in terms of her nonprofit that she is starting. In previous years, our entrepreneurship fund has funded multiple other projects, including a virtual reality project that connects immigrants in this country to their families back in their home countries using virtual reality. We've also funded Maria Mendez, a street vendor out in Chicago, who helps other street vendors get licensed and is also opening up a shared kitchen for other individuals to be able to sell their food. We've also funded, we funded music producers who are looking to support undocumented music artists. We have also funded Armando Ibanez, who is the founder and creator of Undocumented Tales. So as you can see, these are kind of like examples that you can really think about it in lots of different ways, but ultimately the idea is that your project or your endeavor reaches a broader community in some form or another. And I definitely encourage you all to apply and sort of think about how you might potentially be able to do some type of social entrepreneurship as part of your application, as part of the narrative that is required for that. And by the way, that is free money. These are not loans we give away. This is just completely free money. Again, grants ranging from $500 to $2,000 for the Kickstarter grants. And I see Sasha is sharing some information. Sasha, did you want to talk about the legal clinic?
Yeah, my name is showing up as Sasha's. I'm not sure why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that's I posted the information for LCCR's Legal Services for Entrepreneurs Clinic, which is free, and it's occurring next month on the 14th from 5 to 7. I put the address information in there as well. And it's an opportunity for small business owners or people who are thinking about opening a business to get free legal advice. So that information's in the chat box.
Thank you. Great. Well, if there are no other questions at this time, we are going to be logging off. But again, I encourage all of you to check out all the great resources that we shared today. Reach back out to Sasha and Alex, if anybody is running into any problems with business licenses. It's very important for us to understand what challenges people are experiencing out there to ensure that you are well represented. And I'd also love to hear back from other individuals who are pursuing getting professional licensing, so we can learn more about what the process is like for these specific licenses. We are going to be launching a video campaign interviewing individuals who have been able to successfully acquire their professional license, so that others can learn about what these opportunities are all about. Thank you very much to everybody who was able to join us today live. And again, we are going to be posting this recording and the slides as soon as possible on our website. I want to thank Sasha, Alex, and Sushil for participating in this webinar, sharing all this amazing information, and generally all the great advocacy work that you all are engaged in. Thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.